Okay, so I'm doing a video. I don't generally do videos. I was a streamer here and there a while back, whatever. But I don't know why I'm doing this video. I guess it's to, I don't know, find comfort or have others listen to my, ramblings and, who could sympathize with them, I guess. But anyway, I'm Joe Saul, Joey, it doesn't matter. So basically, for the past year, I was in a relationship. Um, and, I just recently got out of the relationship like a few days ago. Um, it was horrible, horrible, horrible. But, you know, like, I'm not like a person that typically does this, like with like relationships and things like that. But this relationship really fucked me up. Solely because like I feel like in this relationship specifically, like I put like invested a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of like myself into it. And so like I just felt like, maybe if, there are others like me that, go into relationships and just like put everything into their relationships, maybe this will help. But so like a year ago, I find this guy, he's great. We get into this relationship, you know, and the relationship, like, so for brief context, so like the relationship was going good at first. There were a couple of things that happened. But then like I was just like, maybe it'll get better, whatever. It always gets better. Anyway, but aside that, so like we were in the relationship, whatever. And then like things started to happen. Um, there were things that I started noticing, things that were just like, okay, this is kind of weird. But at the same time, like I was just like, maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I'm not like looking at things. And at the time, I'm going to therapy. So like I'd been in therapy and I was going to therapy and talked to my therapist about it. And at the time, my therapist, she was just like, it doesn't seem kind of right. Maybe go and talk to him about it, whatever. So I would talk to him about it. And at the time, early on in the relationship, he was very like willing to like talk things over, um, wanting to always like solve problems, things like that. And so like there were a couple instances where like, through the relationship, like I started finding out like he wasn't like setting boundaries, um and like he just it was just like very weird like how he would like talk to like friends and things like that. um and then like there were instances where like I had started like finding him on like hookup apps like Grinder. And so like I was just like, yeah, no, because like I get it, maybe one time, cool, whatever, and then I find you and it's whatever. But then like it was like a couple times. And then like, throughout the relationship, it was just like continuous. And so like I feel like I feel like a lot of what I started experiencing in the relationship. Like I feel like once I started like finding out like things, and the thing about it is, in the very beginning of the relationship, I was like, hey, if there are things that I need to know about the relationship, if there are things that you're doing or things that you have done or whatever, you know, friends that might be there that you know, let me know, because if I have to find out, it's going to be so much worse. And, you know, multiple times in the relationship, he assured me, yeah, no, there's nothing there. There's nothing going on, whatever. And so I took his word for it, because that's, you know, that's what you do. You know, you just kind of take people's word for it, you know, face value and things. But then, like, as the relationship, like, continued and progressed and progressed, and, you know, I felt like it got worse from there. Like, it was no longer just like, you know, oh, you know, finding things. It was like actions changing. It was, you know, like constant like change. And like it kind of felt like there was change overnight, but like like he wasn't as consistent anymore. He wasn't as like talkative. Like, let me tell you. Let me tell you. And you're talking about talkative, like I get people not being talkative people and things like that, and that's fine. But like, he didn't want to talk about like his feelings. He didn't want to talk about, you know, any of that. And we a lot of the times would just sit in silence. You know, here and there we might, you know, bring up a conversation, things like that. Actually, you know, in early on in the relationship, I tried to like do different things to like get us to engage in different activities and things like that. Um, but like, you know, after a while I just kind of like stopped, because like he assured me that, yo, you know, it's just me being comfortable, and you know, once you get like past like 3 or 4 months, you know, you're kind of just in the comfort zone. And I was just like, okay, you know, maybe I could see that. And so like I just kind of like, you know, let that be what it was. But it got to a point to where like I started like I started to have to like initiate a lot of the conversations. I started to have to like I had to initiate like all of our conversations, all of our issues, and everything in between. And I was just like, wow. So like, you know, I started like just, you know, thinking to myself, you know, this is not like how a relationship is supposed to be. You know, like I've been in multiple relationships. It's never to where like one person is bringing up all the issues and bringing up all the, you know, the tough things, and then bringing up all these other things in the relationship. No, it's generally like two people. But you know, I had to like dial it back, because like he was this type of person, whatever. And so, you know, in the relationship, like I guess after the whole, like I found him on Grinder once, and then I found him on Grinder twice. Um, I started feeling very like I started feeling very like insecure, like about like not only just like the relationship, but I felt very insecure about like myself. Um, and like keep in mind, like I am a person that religiously goes to the gym. um I'm always working out, always trying to be like better, eating healthy, things like that, what have you. I'm always doing that. And so like it just got to a point where like I was just kind of like, you know, in this really like weird thing. But like I would like, you know, ask him questions and be like, you know, am I attractive? Am I this? Am I that? And that was because like because of the whole like Grinder thing. But then like because like the relationship just started feeling weird afterwards. Like like after that point. And it was no longer like I constantly felt like in the relationship like he was doing like he had led a different life, like a double life. And I felt that, like I felt it. And like the thing about me is like I'm a good judge, and I get a good sense of like things. Like I like I've always been like that. Like good sense of people, good sense of like in like in any situation, I can almost tell you like, hey, this is good or bad. And like for a long time, like afterwards in the relationship up until earlier this week, I felt the alarm bells, and I was on edge all the time, constantly on edge, constantly just, anxiety ridden, things like that. And like I have a history of anxiety and depression. I've dealt with that for years, years. Um, so, but like, I'm just like, you know, how? Why? What's going on? So, I'm in this relationship, and first of all, like it's a long distance relationship, so like we were already at odds. There were things already against us because we're in a long distance relationship. I had made the choice on two different occasions in the relationship to just go and travel to see him. And I traveled abroad, and it was my first time abroad. Yay! Like, got a tattoo of it and everything like that. UK. Um, but like, and the relationship just kept getting like bad. Like, it was no longer like it got to a point where I could not like talk about my feelings without there being like issues going on or issues with me talking about my feelings. Um, it got to a point where like there was just all of this like rift, and it was never like I could meet or be met where I was at the point of the relationship, because a lot of the things that like I would bring up was a lot of my self-worth, insecurities, things like that, things that made me not feel secure in the relationship or safe. Also, a few more months down the line go down, and I'm making my second trip over there to see him. And it was on that second trip here recently where I found out that, he had been cheating on me and like going on these dating apps and things like that throughout the whole time of our relationship. So I spiraled, I guess would be the, I guess, gist of it. Like, I spiraled. I was depressed. I was betrayed, everything. Like, I felt everything, like to my core, and like to this day, like because it's still kind of fresh. Like all of this just went down in like January. Um, and so like I'm finally like, but like, all this had just started and like happened in January, and I was just kind of like, I didn't know what to do. And like you know, I felt like the rug was just swept right under me, and I was doing all of this stuff. Like I wanted to do like everything with this guy. Like I wanted to go travel the world. I wanted to do all these things. And the thing about me is like I'm a very passionate person. So like when I go into something, it's just kind of like, oh, you in there. Like I get in there. Like and I give my all, I do everything, whatever. And so like, you know, I'm not gonna go into like the details of the relationship because at the very end of the day, like the relationship was what it was. I did my part and then some. You know, I you know, I felt like for a long time in the relationship, like if I would have just stopped everything that I was doing, that the relationship would have ended where it was at the point I had stopped. And whether that was like at mark 6 months, 6 or 7 or 8, the relationship would have ended at that point because I was giving so much and putting so much into the relationship where it felt like I was just in the relationship with myself. Anyway, so I don't know who needed to hear this. I don't know why I wanted to make the video, but like I've been wanting to make this video for a few days now, and I'm just like, I want people to know that, there are people, people who want a relationship, people who want a future, want a family, and things like that. There are people still like that. I'm one of those people. Um, but what I hope for is for like one day, like I find the person that wants to be in a relationship just as much as I do and want to like have my best interest just as much as I want to have their best interest. Because like that's the thing. Like it's like finding people who actually has the same interests as you, but then also who wants to take care and make sure that you're good just as much as they're good. And like I feel like I did not have that in this previous relationship. I felt like, there was a lot of things that I had to deal with in the relationship and I had to tolerate. And don't get me started on like the manipulation and the gaslighting because I just won't even like I was gaslit to hell in that relationship. But it took me like going through what I went through to realize, this, like, and keep in mind, like, I did all the crying, I did all of the begging and all of that. I did all of that in the relationship. And then when we got out of the relationship, I was just completely cut off because, like, I'd given my time. I'd done a whole bunch of things. I'd given all of those, and like, and like I'd done everything that I could possibly do in the situation that I was given, in the situation that I was in. The relationship was never set up for me to be safe. It was never meant for me to be secure. It was never meant for me to feel like I was actually wanted by my partner because of the choices that were made by my partner at the time. And I wholeheartedly feel that. So, you know, I guess my message is next time you get in a relationship, or if you're even in a relationship, and you feel like to your core that things are not right, chances are they're probably not right. And in my case, it was not right. But all I can do from here is look forward, grow, continue to heal because oof, that is that's the tough part is healing through all of that. But I'm doing it. Like I'm doing it. But and just I don't know, keep going, I guess.